Welcome to the Dealmaker podcast, and I'm actually recording this live in Thailand on our Dream Team Retreat 2024 with some of our most amazing delegates here with my business partner Adam Stott. I've got a very special podcast for you. I am now about to take you behind the scenes, and I am about to present a sales session to the delegates, really looking at how business owners just like you, property investors just like you, people that want more out of life, how to make more money just like you, how you can use sales in every area of your life. We're going to look at the blocks. We're going to look at closing techniques. We're going to take some information from the delegates. So this is Top 1% Sales Skills Part 1. I'm going to take you behind the scenes right now. I'm now going to talk about one of the most important elements of how to get into that 1% club. We are going to talk about a subject which is so powerful when you master it. You will never have to worry about money ever again. Does that sound pretty good? Yes or no, team, yeah? It is a subject which many people frown upon. It is sales, but sales is also known as negotiating. Now, this is something which I have studied, practiced, mastered. Some say, Liam, you are a legend salesperson. I'm also a legend as well, right? Like Jim, a living legend. But this is something which, from a very, very young age, I started to implement in many areas of my life. My first ever experience of sales was selling puff crisps. Does anyone remember the 10p bags of crisp puffs? Used to get ready salted flavor. Oh man, they were so good, right? I'm like 7 years of age and I'm buying boxes of these from the local newsagents at like wholesale price. And then I'm selling them at school for retail price. And I'm 7 years of age, right? Yeah, I know. That's it. Can't sell them individually, yeah. And that was really my first experience. And then I used to be obsessed as a child with He-Man. So I used to have all the He-Man toys. You know, what were you obsessed about as a child? Action Man, Turtles, Ninja Turtles, yeah, that was freaking. Barbie, who was into Barbie? Yeah, Nana, yeah, into Barbie, mate. Oh, great, mate, yeah. Oliver was definitely into Barbie, yeah. But we all get obsessed over things, and I was really obsessed. And then I used to go and sell like He-Man figures. Anyway, from a very young age, I got a real excitement about selling stuff, negotiate. I didn't really know what I was doing at the time. All I knew was a very simple concept that I was buying it for this amount, I was selling it for this amount, and I had this bit in the middle to go and buy sweets. And then as I went into secondary school, my mum introduced me to a really good friend of hers, a guy called Tim. And Tim was a London market trader. But he wasn't your ordinary London market trader. He was the guy with the lorry. And the side used to go up. I'm not even sure if they do them these days, but there used to be markets all in and around the London area. And then he'd have the headset on, and then he'd be throwing things out into the crowd, and then he'd be selling his merchandise. And I used to spend my weekends hanging out with Tim, learning the lingo. And what I noticed with Tim, who was probably my first sales mentor, he really taught me how to build desire very quickly with people, how to get people into a frenzy. Because when you've got more demand than supply, what do people want? They want it, right? And at these markets, you used to get like crowds of people, like literally beating each other up to get hold of whatever the thing that he was promoting, which was the next big exciting thing. And I used to really, really enjoy that. And then I said to Tim, Tim, I can go and sell this stuff at school. And by this time I'm in secondary school, and some of you know this anyway, I used to go in with 2 bags, my school bag with my pens and paper, I wasn't interested in that. And then I used to go in with the Reebok bag, and it had the jeans and the perfumes and the cigarettes. And I was like, and I really enjoyed that, because what it done for me, it gave me a real sense of purpose and belonging in school, because I didn't really like school. I'm not academic really at all. I always gave it 200% though. And I always do that with everything in my life. You know, business, relationships, I'm always gonna show up. I'm always gonna give it my best shot. And then I became the kid at school that could get you whatever you wanted, and that was really exciting. And at the time, we lived on a rough council estate, and I used to give some spare money to my mum, and that was really nice. And we'd go and have some nice meals together, and I'd really sort of look after my little brother. And what used to happen is I from a very young age, I became super, super obsessed with like opulent items. Fast cars. Did anyone have a picture on their wall once upon a time, maybe of a fast car or a yacht or something that you really wanted? And I used to have all these pictures up. And I used to say to myself, if I just keep selling stuff, one day that's gonna happen. Anyway, I grew business. I continued to hang around great people, and I've always had some form, like, at the end of the day, would we agree that every business that you can possibly think of, what is driving that business? It's got to be sales, right? It's got to be, because if you don't get any sales, you're not going to make any money. And one of my last companies, before I entered into the world of personal development, one of my last sales companies was Sprint Energy. That was me when I used to wear a suit. So that was about 8 or 9 years ago now. And I talk about that office, some of you know this, that 3,500 square foot office, and had 115 people working for me. Now, unfortunately, that business hit the wall. And it hit the wall fast. And the business went from me being a hero to literally being zero and minus £392,000 in literally a matter of 3 days. Have you ever had a moment in business or in life where you were given a big blow? And you know how that feels. And actually in that moment, I had this fear of like, how the frickin' hell am I gonna bounce back? How am I gonna do this? Because at that time, I'd lost confidence. I could barely look my kids in the eyes because of the shame that I felt. And maybe some of you have gone through some recent change in the last 1 or 2 years, and you've experienced some upset or some discomfort or something that's not working for you. But there was always something inside of me that said, I know how to sell. I know how to build relationships. And I found myself at an event, like many of you in the past, and I discovered this personal journey of development and mentoring and masterminding and retreats. And like many of you, I just went all in. Raise your hand if you're gonna go all in, by the way. I just said, you know what, in for a penny, in for a pound, fuck it. If I'm gonna go out with a bang, if I'm gonna go out, I'm gonna go out with a bang. And I committed 8 years ago to actually getting out of my own way, taking the skills that I've had ever since I was a young child, but actually saying, hey, I'm gonna get rid of my ego. I wanna learn new things. I don't have all the answers. And some of you have openly admitted this morning, one of your problems is that you think you know it all. And it is a very, very dangerous place to be. And that's the place that I was in for many, many years. I can do it on my own. Who's had that thought at some point in the past? Yeah, get rid of it quick. Just literally get rid of that. It doesn't, so it will get you so far, and then it literally won't serve you. So I was like, I'm going on this new journey, and many of you know I invested £25,000, invested another £25,000, but I just made a commitment that I wanted to get around incredible people. And then what I started to do, there was a new way of doing things, right? And would we agree that business has changed in the last 5 or 6 years? Yes or no, team, yeah? There's a new way of selling. There's a new way of building relationships. And like Jane, 8 years ago, the thought of doing video absolutely frightened the hell out of me. Because I made a promise, I'm not letting anyone know what I do. I don't want to put myself out there. I just want to do this nice and private. But one of my mentors, I gave him £25,000, he soon kicked my ass. And he said, look, Liam, why don't you just take a risk? Why don't you just try a new way of building clients, getting people into your funnels, building those relationships, and then offering an incredible service. So like many of you, I started to go and create content. But content that would attract the right type of client. So this is really important. And perhaps you can do some work on this today while you're here. Do you actually know right now who is your ideal avatar? Like literally know them inside out. And if you're not quite sure, then I would encourage you to really get clear. Because once you know that ideal avatar, and even if you feel you know them well, get to know them even better. Because once you know the ideal avatar, what can we do? We can create the right messaging, which ultimately is going to get people to buy your products and services. And that's really what sales is about. And then I just kept going. I thought, you know what? I want to become a legend. This is what I kept saying. I want to become a legend. I want to get to the top of my game. And I started to build some traction. Who has built some traction over the last year or so, perhaps? Yeah. And it's sometimes those small wins. And you're like, oh, but have I really? And you're like, well, I haven't really done that much. But if you actually break it down, every single one of you has built some form of traction. And I just said, you know what? I want to keep getting around other people. So I went over to the States. I went and studied Grant Cardone. I invested another £30,000 into high-level mentoring. I got to hang out with some of the top team. I got to hang out with Frank Kern. And I really started, even as a great salesperson, to say, you know what? I don't have all the answers. Started to build great relationships. I started to feature in some other people's podcasts, which was great, right? Raise your hand if you've been on someone's podcast before. Raise your hand if you'd like to be on a podcast. Okay, great. So I just started to build relationships with influential people. I started to get the branding. I started to build relationships. I started to appear on people's podcasts. I would get shout outs and I would get mentioned, in their press releases. I would be mentioned in, like John Pemberthy, we did some great stuff. Me and Greg did some great stuff. Obviously, Ross is one of my business partners, me and Jess and me and Jay. And then over the last few years, as you know, me and Adam have forged an incredible relationship. So the point I'm trying to make here is what actually is sales? What does it mean to you? So this is really, really important, because people have a different conception of actually what sales is. I really hope you've enjoyed that. It was an amazing session. Stay tuned because part 2 is coming up right now.